Hello. So far, there's about 19 people attending. So we'll start sharp at 7. So is everyone here a participant of BorNEO Hackathon, the BorNEO HackWknd? Can drop a message in the chat.
I think we're still missing quite some participants. Maybe we could wait like 5-10 minutes more to see if people arrive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not a participant, but the event looked too interesting. Thanks. So not a BorNEO Hackathon participant. So are you working? Or are you like a UI UX person already? So fine. How about others are looking to pick up some prototyping skills? Prototyping skills for a software engineer is quite helpful because you're able to sort of understand how, I guess, like have a better understanding of how elements interact when you're coding these things. So just, I think a balance of UI UX understanding together with coding skills, hard skills is going to be quite valuable.
And I'm curious to know also where are people joining from? Like, is it only from Malaysia? Because I've heard the hackathon is actually based in Southeast Asia, so maybe there is more to it. Okay, from Malaysia.
Malaysia as well. BorNEO. So, I'm from BorNEO as well. I'm from Sarawak. From the names of the attendees, it looks mostly Malaysian. Unless I'm just mistaken, but not bad. Our attendees also growing in numbers. Now we're at 44. Sarawak represent, yes. Sangkari is also from Sarawak. Okay. No Sabahans, other half of BorNEO. Is Brunei participating? Because that will be BorNEO as well. Do we know? Zoe.
Okay, so maybe we can wait we can start in 5 minutes. What do you think, Jocelyn?
Yeah, I think okay. Or maybe if we hit 80.
Um,
How many registered? How many do we have registered?
so there are 200 people that registered, to be fully transparent. So maybe we could wait a bit more.
Okay. Yeah, let's
60
wait until 7:05.
participants so far.
Irfan is from Bani. It's nice. Also Selangor.
Okay, Sankari, I see that you're part of BorNEO HackWknd, so you talked about it internally. Maybe more people will join within 5 minutes.
So Shane mentioned earlier that he's a software engineer. I guess I'm just curious what other participants are. Are you guys students or students of what? Or are you also UX in your UX field or software engineers? Just curious what everyone else is up to in this workshop today. Researcher. Yeah, that's very cool. Researcher as well. Yeah, I hope we can teach you some new things. Because we will be touching a little bit, very, very slightly on a very small research part, which is just to give you guys spoiler, it's a bit of uh, research on interfaces and just gathering a bit of inspiration before actually diving into creating the interfaces. So other than that, there's a data analyst, yeah, a product manager again, Eagle at UKM, creative designer, UX student. Looks like quite a good mix of students as well as working people. Working people means you have just finished work, and for those who are fasting, probably going to eat into your breaking fast period right now as well. So very grateful for everyone that is participating today. Jeffrey asked, will there be a recording? Zoe?
Yeah, so we are recording the session and we'll probably post it on YouTube in the next few weeks.
Okay, 7:05.
Okay, I think we could start if everyone's ready.
Yeah, I think let's get started.
All right. All right, so yeah, let's let's start. So, yeah, hi everyone. Thank you all for joining and welcome to this prototyping 10102 here in Figma. So, it's a beginner friendly design workshop brought to you by Friends of Figma Kuala Lumpur and BorNEO HackWknd for those that are participating, and sponsored by Double One Studios and Airphone. So before starting, we wanted to introduce ourselves quickly. So for those who are joining our event for the first time, we are part of the design community Friends of Figma, which is actually the largest design community in the world. So it's really feels really great to be a part of it. And its goal is to bring people together, to inspire, and to learn from one another. It's run by the community and for the community. And we are also very lucky that it's directly backed by Figma, which gives us a lot of freedom and resources in making it easy for us, the volunteers, to organize all kind of events throughout the year. To give you an idea, Friends of Figma exists in more than 80 countries, 245 cities, and organized more than 900 events in 2025. So it's a really active community. And so Friends of Figma Kuala Lumpur, aka FOFKL, is a part of it. So we mostly organize events physically, and sometimes, like today, we also do it online. And in 2025, we hosted 7 events. We have now more than 1,400 members and 4K followers on social media. So it's also a growing local design community. So it's also very nice to be part of this growing uh, group of designers. And we also try our best to really level up the standards of each event we organize, and love to meet you all in real life when we do. We are the FOFKL team is a small team of designers. So there is Wen, there is Jocelyn, Andrew, Cheryl, Florence, and me. And we are also very grateful to all of you that join the events every time. So yeah, thank you all for being here. It really means a lot.
So just a little bit about myself. My name is Jessie Nyok. I'm a UI UX designer. Currently, I'm working with Michael Page to develop their interfaces and design systems. So beyond just maintaining their website as a recruitment company, then I'm also developing ways to make sure processes are very efficient when trying to deploy and develop things for the website. So that's just the UI and the UX of the things that I do at this company. In my free time, I'm also a freelance designer. So aside from UI UX and web design, I'm also uh, developing brand identity and other creative endeavors. So yeah.
And I'm Zoe, your second host today. So I'm a designer and entrepreneur. In my work life, I wear 2 hats. So the first one is that I work on with clients on all kind of projects at Coloc. So yeah, I design digital experiences for uh, their employees, their clients, their users, and I get to work with really different clients. So it's really inspiring and very interesting to work on that. But on my spare time, I also build my own products at Double One Studios. So it's my studio with my co-founder and I, where we simply build softwares for us first, and also then we just ship it to the world. So we mostly target creative students and developers. And by now we're creating more around 10 products. So yeah, we try to keep improving them and listen to our users. And this is also a very big part of my work that I love doing. So yeah, I will tell you about it a bit more later. And since the One Studios is the sponsor today, we have a surprise for you, and that's why you should stay tuned until the end of the workshop, because we'll have a small gift for you.
So we have just a few slides to explain what is UI UX on a fundamental level before we dive into the workshop. So as a sort of prologue, today you'll be finishing with a short but concise understanding of the UI UX design process because you'll be having a very hands-on experience through this workshop. We'll be guiding you step by step throughout the entire design process from ideation, wireframing, all the way up to creating a prototype that's actually quite shippable. So secondly, again, what you'll come up with today is a prototype of your own. So once you have a grasp of how these tools in Figma work, then you'll be able to sort of bring whatever you have in your imagination into real life, sort of. So you'll be able to develop ideas that you have in your mind into Figma. Thirdly, we also hope that you'll finish with some more design vocabulary. So what we typically understand from UI UX are things like buttons and headers. But with this workshop, we want to give you guys a glimpse into the really granular parts of UI UX. So things like variants, components, frames, and of course, prototyping. And last but not least, we hope that we are able to give you a bit of confidence to contribute ideas and designs during your hackathon. And for those that are not hackathon participants, hoping that you'll have confidence to participate in your daily life with more ideas. So very generally, what is UI UX? So these two things are always mentioned together. And how these two things vary is that UI, how these things vary is that they both go hand in hand, but they solve different parts of a design problem. So for UX, some might call it sort of the vibe. So it's how people feel when they are using your product. So several questions that we try to answer when we're approaching the UX of an interface is, number one, is it easy to find what they're looking for? Do they feel frustrated or delighted when they are interacting with your interface? And are they going to come back and use your product again and again, or are they going to uninstall your app because it's so frustrating to use? So what we have on the screen, product strategy, user research, information architecture, testing and iteration, these are the technical things that we do to inform our UX decisions. So we gather information and we form our sort of our database of understanding using these techniques. And just in a nutshell, UX is everything that affects the user's journey from start to finish. So UI is, I think we have a better understanding of it. UI is the look of things. So it's what people actually interact with, it's what they see and touch. So think screens, buttons, icons. UI is the visual and interactive part of the design. So again, what we have on the screen, color theory, typography, design patterns, and interactivity and animation. These are the technical things that are involved in forming a thorough and cohesive user interface. So the intersection that we have between UX and UI, these represent the elements that are needed to bridge both parts together. A designer needs to have empathy. So putting yourself into the user's shoe. How do they feel when they are interacting with this design? What are possible hiccups that they may face? It's very important to have empathy as a designer, especially with UI UX. A UI UX designer also needs to have collaboration. You often need two person's ideas because design a lot of it is opinion. So having multiple opinions allows you to cover more ground and prevent any form of blind spots. You also need to have design thinking when approaching certain problems. And last but not least, you need to have prototyping skills, which is thankfully what we are going to be showing you guys today. So real problems and real impact. design is always perceived as the very fun, artsy, creative thing, but UI UX is a field that really brings the problem super up close and personal to the designer. So you're faced with a problem and you really need to give deep consideration for how the user interacts with your interface beyond just the design and the aesthetics. So I guess like the thinking that you need to have is how can we help the user achieve their goals in the most intuitive way possible to them. So as you can see on the screen, the example that we're showing here on the right with the thumbs down, that is a very common way that we show options in a UI UX. It's radio buttons, it's very simple and it's very straightforward. But we can apply design thinking to enhance the interaction. So we can ask ourselves questions like what information is most important to the user? What is like the sort of information that they're trying to get from this interaction? Is it the credits? Is it the name of the package? Another question is how can I emphasize certain information? Is it with changing the font size, the font weight, different colors? And we can also ask ourselves, how can I make this visually more interesting without affecting the efficiency of the action? So as much as we want to design and make something super, super pretty, it still has to be as efficient as what the radio button is doing, where it's just a click and you get all the information that you need. So it's really a very important balance to strike with design and functionality. And that's a balance that UI UX designers need to manage every time. For those participating in BorNEO Hackathon, these are 3 areas where understanding UX could give you an edge over your competition. So, real world readiness, presenting a product that looks ready to ship will not only tell the judge that you have really good time management, but it also shows that your skills are quite refined and it allows the judges themselves to visualize your product and your concept in the market. And that will definitely score you very high points. Secondly, also first impressions mean everything. So a well-designed interface means good first impressions, which is important when they're listening to so many demos back to back to back. And visual communication via your product's design, more than your slide design or whatever. When your product design is very cohesive and clear, that sort of communication is going to be as impactful as strong presentation skills. And lastly, judges evaluate experience as well, not just code. So most hackathon criteria include things like usability, impact, user value, and feasibility. And the best way to communicate these things, given the very limited time that you have with your presentation, the best way to communicate that is through your interface. And our last tidbit on UI UX fundamentals before we go into the workshop. These are just 3 elements that we think you can carry with you every time you develop an interface. So clarity, first and foremost. Your UI needs to communicate its functionalities to the user, and that communication has to be as clear as possible. Clarity is central to UX because if your interface is not clear, then it's going to be confusing to your user. And when a user is confused, then of course they'll start to feel frustrated. And when they start to feel frustrated, then they will probably not want to use your product anymore. And that is your worst case scenario as a UI UX person. Similarly, consistency. So consistency across your product designs is a subtle but very influential way to convey calmness and trust to your user. So having and implementing standards like errors are always in the red color, success is always green, and uh, the close button is always in the upper corners. These sort of standards are very familiar to users already, and they've been set for decades already. So it's important to maintain these consistent elements and make sure we implement these things and prevent any feelings of confusion to the user. Lastly, we're also hardwired to expect feedback. So, of course, every action that we carry out will trigger a reaction. So, for example, a very common example is when you press a button but nothing happens. You start to feel frustrated. Did my action actually go through? And when these feelings of frustration again arise, then it will severely affect the experience of the user. So now we can proceed to the workshop.
Yes. So we'll share with you a link. Okay. So I shared a link in the chat. You can click it, and it's a community Figma file, so you can open it and start using it right away. And it will actually be the file where you do all the work during the workshop.
So we've prepared the file, a Figma project file for you, just so that it makes following along step by step a lot easier. But if there is any case where you want to try and create your own project or your own idea, then definitely feel free to do so. And if you have any questions, you can always drop it in the chat, and then me and Zoe will try to brainstorm it for you. But actually, I forgot to show you guys this one slide. So if you are the topic or the sort of project that we'll try to teach you guys today is to develop a login or a check-in system, an app for guests to check in at an event. So you'll be designing two screens, the check-in screen where they'll be able to put in to select their role or their role in this event. And then after that, you design another screen for their success feedback. So if they've successfully checked in at the event. So Zoe's already dropped the prototype project in the chat. So you will be able to see this button called Open in Figma. And if there's any issue, you can also drop it in the chat, then we'll try to fix that for you. So again, you can follow our demo step by step, or you can try out your own idea. So do whatever that feels comfortable.
Okay, so should we start with the first step?
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, yeah, as you know, we have limited time during this workshop. It will be a bit more than 1 hour left to succeed in designing those two screens. So I just want to highlight that all those steps would usually take way longer, but here it's like under the time constraint, we just have to do it in a limited time. Anyway, we'll also give you more time until tomorrow 8 p.m. to submit your work. So there is also no pressure on doing everything live. Here it's just to guide you now all together, and if you have questions, it's the right time to ask. But it's okay if you realize that, okay, you haven't done the step in 10 minutes. This is completely fine. Um, the first step will also assume that you have already done the ideation, and that's why here we are suggesting one idea of creating a check-in and succeed page to remove all the ideation process of the design process, even though it's a very important one. Here we'll just focus on the Figma part. So the first step here would be to do the UX research. Um, Usually, as Jocelyn said, the user would expect the product, the app that you will design to be in a certain way, to make sure that the user know already and be able to anticipate how the application works. You are quite obligated, if the niche is broader, to do things in a specific way. That's why you need to do UX research to understand how your competitors, for example, or application that are targeting the similar user target. This UX research step would help you understand better how the design should look at the end. So I would strongly suggest to spend 10 minutes now on finding inspirations on those two screens and to gather them all in your Figma file. It will help for the next steps. I'm sure you know about Pinterest, about Dribble. If you don't know about Mobin, I would also suggest you to have a look. It's a really great product for UX research, as it's a directory of a lot of apps that we use every day. And what they do is that they show you all the screens that exist in this app. So it saves a lot of time. Before using Mobin, I would have to download an app and take screenshots for all the screens. So Mobin saves you time on this type. So feel free to use it. You can see that below I added a few examples. For example, there is a search bar. If you're looking for one specific app, you can just type it, or if you are looking for success screens, you can also do it. And they make it easy to copy the screen and to simply paste it in Figma. So we'll start the timer, and yeah, we'll give you 10 minutes to find a few inspiration based on what you want the user target to be, and also about the design in the global, how you want it to look like. So yeah, Jocelyn, do you want to start the timer?
Yeah. What timer?
Um, okay, so yeah, 10 minutes. All right, thanks. So I see, Jack, you're asking how long does it usually take? Well, it's important also to understand that the design process is actually a cycle. So it's a lot of iteration. So you could take 1 hour or 1 week or month to do UX research. It really depends on what are your goals. If your goal is to build one app in one day, I would suggest you to take maybe 1 hour. But so yeah, I mean, it depends a lot. And regardless, if you take 10 minutes today, that's fine. But it's just that at the end, you may have to do at the next iteration stage more UX research. So yeah, there is no like universal answer to that, I would say.
Yeah. And if I can add, I think if you are more familiar with UI UX design and you've done more and more things, you've developed more and more things, you design more and more, then probably your UX research phase will be shorter sometimes because you already have sort of a wealth of knowledge that you have experienced from your previous uh, things that you've done. So sometimes you already know, like, oh, if I want to make a carousel, I know exactly the kind that I want to make. I've seen it before on this other page. So it becomes less about hunting through the internet for inspiration and more so just like sifting through interactions or components that you've seen before and you feel like it will be a good fit in this particular design that you're developing. I think for beginners, especially when I started out in this phase, it was more so trying to find interesting interactions and we can how special or how different uh element can be. So for example, radio buttons. It's very common to just make it those three dots that change as you select, but there's a lot of design on the internet now that can improve on existing ideas. So I think it's important as designers to try to uh, keep fresh on these new trends and new designs that are going around.
Yeah. Celeste is asking, how long did it take for you both to get to the stage where you felt you were fluent in UI UX? Jocelyn, do you want to answer first?
Fluent in UI UX. I think probably I can't say that I am like super happy with the amount that I know because there's still so much left to learn always. And there's always new things popping up, especially when we're in tech and the tech field is always changing. So I think when I really mastered how to build what I want. So I had an idea in my head and I could really execute it in Figma. It was probably at that stage where I realized like, okay, I'm like pretty good at this. So yeah, what about you? So
Yeah, I mean, I agree on the fact that we always have to learn, especially in the world of AI, where there are a lot of things that are changing and we have to adapt and learn a lot of new things in a very short amount of time. Um, but I would say I started to become way more fluent in UI UX the moment I knew how to master the tools and understand deeply the UX process. So I don't have to learn those things anymore. I know those things already, and from that I can really go deeper on in like the problems I'm trying to solve. But that's
yeah.
true that we cannot be 100% like a master
Yeah.
of UI UX.
Yeah.
And
But wait, I just realized we're not answering Celeste's questions. He asked how long did it take? For me, maybe I studied a bit of UI UX in uni. So that was my first like proper exposure to UI UX. So I had like a course, two courses of UI UX in uni, and then uh, I freelanced after that. So that was a continuous learning journey. And in my first job, it was a sort of hybrid designer role. So I did have a bit of UI UX experience, but I got a lot of design and marketing experience as well. So to quantify, it will probably be about 2 years, 2 to 3 years for me to feel sort of fluent.
okay, well, you're right to mention that. Actually, I come from a bachelor in UI UX, so I studied this very topic full time for 3 years. And I don't think it was during my bachelor that I actually learned. It's when I started to work with clients and companies where you are already, I mean, facing real problems. Yeah.
Yeah, theory and practice is always a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So yes, we will get we will be posting the video up on YouTube. So yes, there's a recording, but yeah, it will
not today.
be it is today.
We'll probably let you know on social medias once the recording is available.
Yes. So that's why it's very important to follow Friends of Figma KL on Instagram, because that is where we update most of our events. So, and also, like, don't just listen to me and Zoe yet, because if you want to get the certificate of completion of this course, this workshop, then you need to submit your files to me and Zoe. Then you'll get the certificate. If you don't, then you won't get the certificate. Oh no.
Very serious question.
Okay, wait. Okay. But Jack, what do you think about the idea of getting replaced by AI and job market saturation? I'm considering to make a career change to UI UX. Zoe, you'll take this one first?
Um, well, oddly, I'm not so scared about being replaced by AI because I've seen how much I could do with AI. Thanks to AI, I got to learn a lot of things and do a lot of things by myself. For example, coding. So I feel that AI is giving more of a superpower to people that use it rather than people. I mean, I know that there are jobs that are getting removed and everything, but I really think that there is a lot of value also having AI in this world. So it's a tricky question, to be honest, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I think for me, the idea of getting replaced, I I definitely think there'll be less jobs going around. But in terms of replacing UI UX designers completely, maybe it's foolish of me to say, but I don't think it's happening anytime soon, because um definitely companies are pushing for more AI usage, of course. But at the same time, as Zoe mentioned, it's always in the form of tools that are sort of streamlining UI UX processes. So there are tools that can develop your interface straight away, but at this, but it's you still need human ideas, and every problem, so every client, every project is going to have very specific needs. Not a lot of things aren't one size fits all, and you tend to need humans still to parse through and sort of understand the problem and come up with a solution for you. So AI is still very much a tool, even still in UI UX. So in terms of replacing my job, maybe I'm foolish again, but I'm not prepared yet. Time's up. Okay, so I hope everyone got to get some work done, because you have two very noisy presenters here talking so much. But hopefully you guys got to get some inspiration from your UX research, because now we'll be moving towards a very important aspect of UI UX, which creating wireframes for your screens. So wireframes are pretty much like the building block that you should start with when designing interfaces. So it's like sketching or brainstorming. It's getting the very basic stuff out before you proceed into building something fully. So getting the fundamental, getting the base of things first, and then proceeding to the actual design is going to help you save a lot of time when you're going to be reiterating a lot. So focus on structure, not visuals yet. And the things that you can think about are where does the button go, or what sort of information is needed when users are going through this interaction. So I'll guide you through a bit of to do the wireframe, but at the same time, I'm going to put up the timer. So this one will take 15 minutes. So let me just so firstly, you want to start by creating a frame. So you have your whole interface here on Figma. Then this is the frame button. So either you press this or you press F, and then you click iPhone 17. You can click whichever size you want, but I'm using iPhone 17. So I have your frame here, and from there you just start to build out elements on your page. So my tip is to be careless and loose. So what I mean by that is not to fuss or worry too much about details like rounding the corner or font color, font size, font family. Just consider the function of the page, how the function is performed, how the user will know how to use this page, and yeah, just the general structure of things. So very simply, I'm going to build it out here. So header, so I'll just call it page title first. And um, I said not to fuss about font family, but I'm just going to make it larger a bit just to differentiate from when I duplicate that. And then I want to have copywriting. So actually, you might have seen me when I pulled up this timer widget. It was actually from this section. So this is where Figma has additional assets, additional plugins. Most of these are free and they're free to test anyway. And if you find out they're paid, then don't pay up. But what I use is this lorem ipsum generator. So you can specify how many sentences you want to generate. Maybe I just want two. I want a very short copy underneath here. And I can click generate. So I can scale the size back down. Yeah. Then just position it generally there. And then I want, like what I have here, what I want is a selection for users to select what kind of role they are. So again, a very, very basic event check-in page. So what you can use, what I use here, I use either rectangle, yeah, let's use rectangle. Why I'm considering whether to use rectangle or frame comes into play later on when you are trying to auto layout things. So when you use rectangle, sometimes when you are creating auto layout, it may go a bit weird. Organizer. But for this, right now my text box is quite big, right? So I want it to just fit to whatever size text I have. So that's this button. So auto width. So sometimes when your text is like long, and when you click auto width, it makes it super long. So you can just scale it back to generally the size you want. And then you just make it very simple. And then just okay. First I want to create a block for it. Block like this. So frame, you don't have to select from here. Like the preset templates, you can draw your own frame, or you can group a bunch of things like this, and then you can press Shift and A, and then it will make these two things a frame as well. But I'm going ahead of myself. Firstly, let's just make this, give it a stroke, just to show that it's a box. And then, yeah. So I want 3 more of these. So I can Control C, Control V, and then it will paste in place. Or I can hold Shift while I'm no, I can hold Control Alt. Yeah, I can hold Alt on Windows, but it's Option on MacBook. You can drag it down, and you can drag it down again. And then once you've done it once, you can Control D, and then it will replicate what you've just done. And it will have the same spacing as well. So maybe organizer, pen, speaker. There's other. And then just take this box back up. Then I'll create another frame down here. I'll just give it fill. And this one I want it to be my button. So I'll draw text inside my frame. I'll call it button. Again, I can resize the text to auto width just so that it occupies exactly the amount that I've written. Just very simply, just put it inside there. So that's your first wireframe. Very, very simple. And then you can proceed to do your success page as well, or whatever page that you have. I think my timer paused. So
Yeah.
Zoe, if you
Yeah.
time.
So that there is 7 minutes left.
Okay. When I clicked away and I saw it disappear, I knew something happened. Okay. So yeah, if there's any questions, of course, you can drop it in the chat. As you develop your wireframe, I can continue talking. So Lukman asks, do you have any faith YouTuber to learn UI UX? So I think one very popular one, I watched a few of her videos early on, and I think most Malaysians would know is Rachel Howe, who is our very own Malaysian as well. She's a very successful and very knowledgeable UI UX designer. So that's like a very good start. Honestly, one very good platform is Figma's own videos. They have very good tutorials and very good articles as well on a lot of topics surrounding UI UX. So they have several different blogs. There's one about design systems where you can learn about organizing your design elements. You have video tutorials that guide you and help you understand how UI UX elements like components or variants work. So I think those two are my recommendations.
On my side, it's been a very long time I haven't watched any tutorial or videos about UX design, so I couldn't recommend any names. Sorry.
Yeah. In terms of learning UI UX, aside from YouTube, I learned a lot of UI UX honestly from looking at other people's designs. So I didn't use Dribble as much, but I used the one that's under Adobe. The name's not coming to me, but it's like
Behance.
Dribble.
Behance.
Ah, yes, Behance. So I use that a lot to look at how beautiful some people's designs can be. Not always the most practical, not always the most intuitive, but it helps you get your creative juices flowing, and it inspires me a lot in particular to build interfaces that beautiful. Aside from that, also websites like awards, a www arts, they have very extravagant, very well built websites that you can visit and interact with. That's also a very good platform to again look at how beautiful UI can be. People that really push the boundaries of UI UX, but also they have a similar functionality to Mobin where you can search by components. So if you want to look at nav bars, so they will have a list of designs that people have done for navigation bars. If you want to look at um, menu bars, hamburgers, how do people innovate on those elements? I think in terms of inspiration, that's nice.
Yeah, I do use awards as well, but I feel it's more for web design rather than mobile apps. But yeah, it's also a great website with a lot of inspos, and you realize how creative people are. That's, yeah, really inspiring.
Yeah. I think one way that I learned UI UX is a lot of self learning in a way that I see an idea that I find very interesting, or I have an idea in my head and I want to replicate that in Figma. So just really chasing an idea, look and searching up tutorials specifically for that idea. Like I want to create a carousel with like cover interactions. I will look something up, I will look for my specific problem, and then I will try to execute that in my own designs. And I think that is where you get the most hands-on and the most effective learning because it's again very hands-on. Yeah. So let's reply to that. Yeah, very much agree.
Yeah, shall
Um,
we to answer more in detail? Actually, there are two different things. I mean, we'll get to it to the next step, but grouping and using layout frames is different. Um, so yeah, if you can, using Shift A, which actually creates a frame, is better to do Command G to group. Yeah.
there is a time and place for group. Sometimes there are situations where you do need to group, but with very basic layouts, it's a good habit to use Shift A, which is to create an auto layout, to create a frame. Later on, yeah, Zoe will go into auto layout. Muhammad Firdaus, I try many times to use variables, boolean, but it never worked. Oh,
Um, for Boolean, it's also what you name your variables. For example, if you name one on and one off, or true or false, then it automatically creates a Boolean on your variable.
yeah.
If it
Later, when we are exploring components, we'll be able to go into booleans a bit as well. So, okay. Time's up. So, hopefully, everyone managed to make some good progress with the wireframe. And if not, we can always continue after our call ends. So,
Yes, so now we'll let you work on the auto layout section a bit longer, because we know how much most people hate auto layout, and I understand you, because I mean, at first it seems very complex, but once you get how it works, it's really really useful, and it makes your life of designing the product so much easier. So I would strongly recommend you to try really hard to understand how it works, so then you'll see how easy and intuitive it is, and it will make also the life of your developers very easy too. So I know they will appreciate you using auto layout. um, so the goal of auto layout is actually to make the frame that Jocelyn talked about earlier, to make it responsive, and that it would allow the frame to be automatically adjusted with the size, the spacing, and the alignment uh, in case the content changes. For example, if you want to create um, two different versions of your app, one would be the mobile app, so you would start with this one, but then you would create the version on desktop. Technically, the way it works when it's in production, you can adapt it, and all the content on the app would adapt to it. So it's best if you already think about this mechanism in Figma directly, and you can do it with auto layout. So um, what we'll do is that we'll take a button. So let's say in the previous the wireframes that you created, you must have created a button, I'm guessing. So let's just try to make this button use auto layout. So I will take the button that Jocelyn made, and I will just do one more thing, is to use an icon, just to make it a bit more complex. So what's great about Figma actually is that they make auto layout really easy to use at first, just by using the shortcuts. So if you select all the elements of the components you want to create in an auto layout in a frame, you can just select it all and do Shift A, and Figma understands that you want to make it that way, so it would just do it by itself. If not, if you don't have a rectangle, for example, behind, that's okay too. Let's say you just have the text and the icon. You can select both, either do Shift A, or you go to click Add Auto Layout. And now the frame size is only the size of the button and the arrow, but it's a button, so you need more spacing. So what you will do is that, you see when you click on the frame on the right side, there are a lot of things that are showing. So here you want to focus on auto layout, and the same way as you would find if you're a software engineer, or if you have some knowledge in tech, in development, you will see that here you can add the spacing on the left and right, and here top and bottom. So we want equal spacing on both sides. So let's say we want 32. It would adjust the frame. And here we want 12. Same. And now you see that you have a button. And here you want the gap between the text and the arrow to be just, you want it to be a bit smaller, let's say 8. And now since there is this icon, so here you see that this frame, this iPhone frame, you see this icon on the left, which means that it's a frame. And here, when you select this one, the icon is a bit different. So this icon means auto layout. When you hover it, you see it. Which means that now, if you resize the button, let's, by the way, rename it button. If you want to update the size, for example, you want the size of the button, sometimes you see it on apps, you want the size of the button to adapt to its content. So here you have button like this, but if it's if you want to say follow friends of Figma, then you see that it's adapting to it. And that's the way we want the layout to behave most of the time. So I know that it can be a bit complex, but really it's really useful. You can then make either the size, the width of the text. For example, it should either hug, but maybe you want it to fill the content. So if here you have like 200, but this you don't want to fill, you want it to hug, then it would adapt. Here you want also to hug. So you actually need to work more on the auto layout and really how you want it to behave here, more than trying to use this. That's how I think is really the best, because here it's just like you cannot be that precise by just dragging and dropping, but here you can actually monitor exactly how it should look in the code. And if you do really spend the time in setting up things from there, then the developer would also know exactly how it should be. Okay, so I don't know how much I talked, but then you can, feel free to start experimenting with it. And if you have any question, we're here to answer. Jocelyn, you're mute.
Wow. I was saying that auto layout is something that is a trial and error thing to learn, because it will do very shocking things to your design sometimes. When you've already arranged everything so well, suddenly it throws your whole thing to look like a mess. So it's important to learn. Sometimes you will layer frames inside frames. So some components you want it to be horizontally aligned. You want them to stack horizontally. And then maybe underneath it you want it to stack vertically. So it will be one frame, and then each of it is one frame, and then you have a whole thing that frames it all together. So
Like divs for the devs.
yeah. Mm, so yeah, you can try to apply auto layout into your entire project, or if it's too scary, you can apply it to key parts like your buttons and your main components, and play around with each thing. So for example, flow, this is what I mean when you can make it vertical or you can make it horizontal. So right now, for example, the button that Zoe built, it's horizontally flowing. But if you want things to stack one on top of the other, then you can click vertical. So then the gap that you change here is the horizontal gap, the vertical gap. So depending on what you want to make, then this is how you can adjust your design using auto layout.
Yeah, and the more auto layout you use, the more scalable the designs that you're creating would be also.
Yeah. I think one of the most helpful things about auto layout is that it allows you to make your designs responsive.
Mm.
So if you're designing for a mobile interface and then there's also a web interface, that's two very different sizes. So having auto layout makes the adapting a lot easier because once you drag, if you use fill, like for example, this resizing, once you, like I mentioned, you put containers inside containers, you can use fill to distribute the items, like this fill container. And it allows you to scale depending on how big your containers are. So it makes designs a lot more responsive. So we have about 13 minutes for you guys to try, not to rename. It's not wireframe anymore, yeah. It is auto layout. So we have about 30 minutes. So I guess we can answer a few more questions in the chat. So Celeste asked, in the working world, do your designs tend to get rejected by the developers? Or do you do both roles yourself? Or does it depend? Um, for me, in my current role, I am solely UI UX. So there are developers that I work with. I don't deploy my own designs. Um, my designs don't get rejected by developers, but they get rejected by, or they get amended a lot by product managers. So product owners and product managers, they will uh, have their, like they will have their priorities, which is to align concepts between various parties. So I'm only one part of the puzzle. So of course I will do the design first, and there will be rounds of amendments to bring everything into agreement to make sure developers are able to develop it, to make sure it's in line with the brand, to make sure but the website owners are able to use it easily across languages, across countries. So not to say rejected, but amended. That is just a very normal part of being a UI UX designer.
Yeah, usually it's, I mean, I also experience that sometimes because of budget, the designs cannot be done because the deadline is too tight or it's just too complex to implement. But for some design decisions, as long as they are backed by like good reasons, you can also use those reasons to convince when you need to. So yeah, I mean, it depends if it's like more of a bold idea or something that you're trying to experiencing and actually it's too risky or the client is not on the same page, then that's one thing. But if it's about user experience specifically, um, I think that you can easily convince them just by explaining why you decided to put this button here, why this color, why the flow is like that and not another way. One thing I do also a lot is to keep every design I've done. I don't delete anything. I just have a backup page on Figma because sometimes they would suggest something and I would tell them that no, I tried already, and then I can show them and explain them why it didn't work. Um, so yeah, if you don't delete your design, sometimes it's also useful to convince people to go with what you've done and what you're showing right now.
Yeah. I guess a similar question with Georgina. Do you work with software engineers a lot? How do you make sure they understand what you try to convey? Sometimes it's a matter of sitting beside them and showing them how it works. It's it really depends on the company that you work with and how that company is set up. So sometimes software developers, even as UI UX, sometimes you barely get to meet them if they're an agency and they're a vendor. So sometimes you don't really liaise with software developers. You probably liaise with product owners. And in that case, then again, it's just uh, making sure your Figma files are very easily understandable. And I think in terms of explaining how the design works, I think that's where prototyping comes into the picture because they're able to interact with it. And as long as the interaction is as you design, then they're able to understand that, okay, like when I hover on this, it turns blue. When I click on it, it turns green. So it may be very easily done in Figma, and it could be very complicated to implement in code. And it could be vice versa as well. Maybe something that's very easy to implement in code is a feature that maybe Figma doesn't have. So it's very complicated and convoluted to implement it in Figma. So to convey your design and convey your ideas and making sure they understand, I guess it's just number one, making sure your files are easily understandable, having a prototype, and then beyond that is just communication face to face.
Yeah, and testing also once it's implemented and giving feedback on what doesn't look like on Figma. And usually they're fine, but I mean, you may need to remind the developers because they would have to work on a lot of technical things that were like polishing the designs may not be the priority at first to ship it a beta version. So sometimes it's also just testing and saying what can be improved or becoming closer to what you've designed. And yeah, I mean, I agree that having a Figma file that's very clean and organized and using auto layout, using components, we'll see the next step. Styles as well. All those things make sure that the designs are very consistent inside the Figma itself. Make it also very useful and just faster for the developer to understand that, okay, here we are using this color is mentioned everywhere in the file, rather than having to hard code a lot of things, and at the end we lose inconsistency in both the Figma file and also the live version because of the fact that the designs could be improved but are not, when the developer has to develop the app.
Skipping forward a few questions just to answer Jack. You mentioned that do I put the text directly into the frame? Can I have separate layers for each? Uh, I think yes, you can start out like that, and then you just shift A. For shift A, there's a slight difference between just creating a frame and then applying auto layout onto it. So I think just like to very quickly show you, with a frame by itself, you have the arrange the flow section, but you don't get to choose whether you want to hub content of the container, and there's not the additional section here. So if you put the text box directly inside, let me just button, then you can see in your layer that your button is inside your frame. So when you move it around also, the button text moves with your frame. So that's the first step. And then auto layout is applying auto layout into it. So add auto layout or shift A. That is when you have all of these additional functionalities that we're talking about. So alignment here just means let's say I remove padding really quick, and then I set my size to 100. So now you have a fixed box, and this is where you're able to see what alignment means. So you can align the top center, bottom corner, and then you can also still add padding, and it will still sort of be where you want it to be. And once you have a frame, you can have multiple things as well. So that's where the flow function starts to show its significance. I hope that answers you, Jack. Hmm, Going back up, which AI tools do you use for designing mobile interfaces?
Hmm.
You want to go first?
Yeah, well, it keeps changing actually because every day there are new news on AI. So what I use the most is Cursor, and it's more about the AI model. So I would use Claude, Sonnet most of the time. Um, Other AI tools, well, there is Figma Make also. That's also great to prototype quickly, um, but in a more like code way. But if you want to go really in the code side, I use Cursor and anti-gravity and windsurf changes based on which day of the week.
Yeah. For me, I don't do much mobile in general. And I guess like in terms of AI tools, like you touched on external tools and platforms. For me, I use a lot of Figma's own AI tools. So one tool that pretty much I think saved me hours and hours of working is the remove background tool that they have on their images.
That's right.
So yeah. Do we have an image that we can try that on? Let me see. I think we can try on this guy. So if you have an image, oh, this whole thing is an image. Oops. An image, for example, maybe let's try this one. You just to show you, when you click on it, then you'll have this section at the bottom here, and it will prompt you to remove background, or you can go from. Oh, I don't think you can go from inside here anymore. So yeah, from outside, you click remove background, and then it will just remove the background for you. It does a very clean, super clean job. And when it comes to images with people, it saves a lot of time from going to remove.bg or going to Photoshop to remove the background and importing the photo back in. Doing it in Figma saves a lot of time, and it does a very good job also. Um, Other than that, also AI, Figma has their AI text generating tool. So if you ever want like a very quick copy, so for example, this, you already have your text here. You can go into this section again, and they will suggest rewrite this. So maybe I want to say write a copy to users to thank users for joining the event. Then you'll just write a very basic copy for you. That also saves a lot of time if you're not someone that is very good with writing things. this is going to be very helpful when generating mockups. And we're done, out of time for auto layout section. So now another very important and very fun section is components. So let me just start the timer. And I think a lot of people have an understanding of components in Figma and the way that it's used to make buttons. So today we're going to show you how to make 3 button states. Default, when nothing's happening to it. Hover, when you have your mouse over it, and pressed. So after you press, then what does it look like? So components make your designs reusable and simplified, allowing you to group and organize similar objects or different states together. It's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of effort as your project starts to grow bigger and bigger. And yeah, it allows you to replicate things very easily and make changes across your project super easily as well. So firstly, you have your button that has auto layout already. I've done just a little bit of designing, which I just added a bit of corner radius down here in appearances. So you can make it 20. So you have your button and you can right click on it. So wait, let me just right click on your button and then click create component. Or if you want, you can use the shortcut Control Alt K. So now you notice that your button and the lines surrounding it have gone to purple. And this means you are dealing with a component. There's this additional symbol on the left-hand side of your component name as well. Again, good practice is to always name your things. You have a button. So then what you want to do is you look up here on the right-hand corner, and then there's a thing called properties. So you want to click the plus sign, and you want to click on add a variant. So now you'll notice that there's a plus sign underneath your button or underneath your component. So now that you created a variant, you want to click on this plus sign. So when you click on it, you'll see that your button has duplicated. So now to keep yourself organized, you want to name your property. So this is how the different buttons are differentiated. So I will call it state. I'll call it state. And for this button, I want it to be the default state. And this button, I want it to be the hover state. So I'll call it hover. So earlier, someone mentioned that they wanted to learn Boolean and their Boolean didn't work. So I think I'll make a button with 2 states. So I can say on. You can also use a different naming system called true or false. But because our property, we've named it state, so I'll say state is on or state is off. Or actually, it should be this guy is off because he is the default. This guy is on. So now that you have your 2 states and you've named them, you want to differentiate them. So what do you want your off? What do you want your off state to look like? Maybe I want it to be. Maybe I want it yellow. And when it's on, then I want it to be maybe a deeper yellow. Maybe orange. Okay. So now you can navigate up here to prototype, you have design and then you have prototype. You can click on prototype and now you are working in a slightly different environment. When you click on your first guy, your off state or your default, you'll see this plus button here. So you have to make sure you're in prototype. Then when you hover, you're able to see this plus button. So you want to click on it and you want to drag it to your second state. So just really quickly, I'll demo that again. You can click and drag. You see an arrow come up as you're holding onto it. Drag it and release it onto your destination. So the way to think about it is what you start with and what you want to end with, or what your next phase is. So here, you want to make sure your trigger is on tap or on click. Sometimes it's on tap or sometimes it's on click. So think about your interaction. Right now, we're saying that this is the hover, right? So it's not on tap. You want it to trigger when you're hovering. So make sure your trigger is while hovering. Then your action, you want it to change to, which is correct. And you want to change the state to on. So earlier Boolean, I named this as on and I named this as off. Oh, I named this as off and I named this as on. So in Figma, it automatically detects that it's a Boolean function. So it gives me a switch or a toggle. So it knows that when I am navigating here, I want it to go from off to on. So change to state on. And the animation, let's say I want it to be smart animate. And here you can have a lot of fun with the different curve beziers. So I'll just leave it as ease out with the duration 300 milliseconds. So that is pretty much your prototype, your component done. And later on, when we are prototyping, then you'll be able to test it out. But if you really want to test it out right now and see how it works, you can drag your button back into your design. So for example, I've done some screens here. So you can either drag it in directly or from assets, you can navigate to created in this file and then you can drag your button. So this is the button that I just created that's yellow. I can drag it into my design. And you see, because I've applied auto layout to my whole design, then it moved according to the spacing that I determined. So I want it down here maybe, or maybe I want it in here. So just really quickly to show you guys how it works. Press the play button and then it will bring you to this second screen. And that's when you can see that your button is working. So from state off, while hovering, it turns orange. So stay on. So that is your Boolean functions working. And buttons don't just have to be 2 states. You can create as many states as you want with all sorts of different kinds of triggers. So for example, what I've done here in the example, you can inspect them yourselves. So what I have here, from this state, you can click on the arrow to see what the interaction does, or you can click here to see what the interaction does. So while hovering, go from blue to yellow. So change to state hover. And from this guy, I add another arrow, and this one becomes, the trigger is on tap. So when you're tapping on it, change from this guy to the pressed button. And that's just a matter of clicking the plus sign here. it adds another state for you. You can name it whatever you want. You can name it disabled, or can change how it looks. So a disabled button, or when it's not being in use, then yeah, you can set the interaction to whatever you want. So again, this is something that has a very deep learning curve. I wouldn't say it's very steep because, as I've just explained, that the process can be quite simple, but sometimes as your ideas get more and more intricate, then the building of these components can become more and more uh, complicated as well. Like it's all a matter of trial and error. Then you're able to learn as you build your projects. So there's about 10 more minutes left for you guys to try this out for yourselves. Again, if there's any questions, you can drop it in the chat. Questions from the chat. I hope I did not miss anyone. Is UI UX just designing, or is there more to it, like any coding involved? I guess like from what you can see here from this workshop is that a lot of these things, like all these building components, making auto layout, and later on, as you dive deeper, building variants, building design systems, these things, the more you do it, the less design there is. It's more so, honestly, it's like very, very high level coding, sort of like low code or no code coding type of things, where you're building components and building variants and elements for you to make your design faster or make it more consistent across your project. So that is like the Figma side of things. That's like not even really design anymore.
Yeah, I don't think there is always coding involved if you don't want to, but it's also good to have some knowledge about the right terms so you can also speak the same language with the developers. And if they need something, you can say it in a way that they would understand very clearly how to implement it. Yeah, rather than just using design words that may not exist in the development world.
Yeah. And sometimes there's like very, very low level, not to say coding, but just like logical reasoning type of things. So the boolean that I've shown you guys is a very simple true false boolean. But as you dive deeper into building things on Figma, sometimes you want things to trigger not just on hover of a certain thing. Maybe when you click on something, somewhere else in your design changes. And that is that then becomes a matter of variables. So in Figma, if you notice in your when building this prototype, your action, there's also things like set variable, set variable mode, and conditionals. So these things are way more technical than the things you typically encounter as a designer. And if you want to dive into them, like there's like we said earlier on, there's like so many things to learn all the time. Alisa asks that how do you shift your career to focus on UI UX? So, yes, in my first job, I was what was the title? But it's like a digital designer. So it was everything from social media, video editing, animation, and also a bit of UI UX. So how I shifted my career is just aside from passion projects where I build things that I found very interesting or um, yeah, a few passion projects, just creating something even though nobody asked for it, just having a portfolio of UI UX work that's very helpful when applying for UI UX roles because even though I don't have a very full formal training of UI UX design, having a portfolio and being able to show uh, hiring managers what you're able to do, and also being a bit more well read on UI UX concepts. So, as I mentioned, there's a lot of blogs or articles that you can read online to learn about these things, but there are also a lot of very good books to read. So, um, if anyone studied UI UX, you've probably heard of Tom Mormon or Nielsen from the Nielsen Mormon group. So Nielsen Mormon group is actually a very, very good resource of UI UX. They're pretty much like the fathers of UI UX and human computer interaction. So there's a book called The Design of Everyday Things. I think that's a very good resource of learning, like just having building a design thinking skill and being able to understand UI UX on a fundamental level first, and then also being able to create uh, designs or create projects to put into your portfolio. And also another thing I did was I freelanced before I got a full-time UI UX role. So I transitioned from being a freelance graphic designer to a freelance UI UX designer. So I took on small roles at first, and then after that, as clients trusted me more, then I was able to take on UI UX freelance projects as well. So that was where I learned my skill. I think that answered the question. Okay. RT, I would like to know your thoughts on this scenario. Let's say we've created two iterations, A and B. As designers, we strongly believe A is the better solution based on UX principles and goals. But what if stakeholders choose B instead? Have you experienced this before? How did you handle it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can answer. I've experienced it before, and it depends the relationship I guess you would have with the stakeholders. But sometimes it happened with clients where they just prefer this option B for very personal reasons more than grounded reasons. You can try to convince them, but depending on their personality, they may have already made their mind. So if it's the case, and if they are the stakeholders, well, as the designer, you don't always have the power to do anything. So I guess you just have to go with B. Um, but some other times they also trust you, and I guess that's the projects that are the most interesting, where they really care about what the designer thinks and trust your choices. So I would hope that in most cases they would listen to you and go for option A. But if they say B at the end, even when you tell them that A is better, I'm not sure there is nothing that you can do, unfortunately. Unless, Josie, maybe you have like a hack.
This is not a UI UX tip, more so like just a human interaction kind of thing. Sometimes, I guess, because stakeholders, they have their own reasoning for choosing certain things. It could be, like Zoe mentioned before, a budget issue. Maybe they have their own reasoning, like they want it to be closer to the previous version. Maybe they don't want it to look too bombastic or anything, or they want to play it safe. Maybe the developers aren't able to develop in such a way. So I guess it comes down to being able to work within the boundaries that you're given. So it can be frustrating sometimes when you know that you're maybe you know that A is so much better, but they insist on B. It's then it then becomes working within B to bring it closer to what you believe is better for UI UX terms. So these sort of issues, like in any design career or any creative career, it's a matter of opinion. So sometimes you may need to concede, or sometimes if you really do believe that it is important to stand your ground, that is a matter of your choice. uh and the timer just finished for components. We might need to speed through the last two sections. So yeah, maybe we can do color and style 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not very technical, so it can also be something we do for 5 minutes, and then if you want, you can go more in depth after the workshop is done. So the next step is to work on the styles and to really start polishing the designs by adding colors, choosing typography, um, and basically, yeah, making the UI a bit more pretty. So how do we do that? For all the same reasons that we've talked before, for better consistency, it's better to, the same way it works in development, not have anything that's hard coded in your Figma file. So this is why styles are really useful. Um, there are two different ways that you can go with making your UI better. You either use styles, which is more beginner friendly, and this is the one that I will show you now. And there is one that's more complex by using tokens. Um, you would use tokens mostly when you have to build a more complex design system, for example, with a very large branding and probably a company where you would have a lot of users and everything and complex screens. But when it's for a small app, for example, styles can be enough. So the first step that you would have to do is to create your color palette. Um, uh, Usually you would always have some shades of gray in your app, so you can select. Here I created a palette, but feel free to create your own. So you can simply just create a rectangle, and then on the right you will see fill. You can click on the small gray rectangle, and then you can select whatever color you want. So I would recommend that first you create ones that's black, and then from this main black you can duplicate it and change the opacity of the same color. So let's say 70. And then do the same thing. And then do it again. Let's do 40 and then 10%. And here you can see that it's creating a nice shades that's complementing one another, so it looks nice and it will blend really well in your app. So this is one first thing. Then you can, I picked pink here, but feel free to select whatever color you want and do the same thing as we just did for the shades of gray. And then you would also most probably need a green and a red, so green for success and red for alerts. So let's just focus on the first one that you just created, or picked whatever you prefer. Let's say I will do with pink. The next step, once you have your color palette, is to create it as styles. So you can select one of your rectangles, and in the fill section where you just change the color, you will see that facing the fill, there is this 4 circles. When you hover, it shows apply styles and variable. So you click on it, and then you will see near the cross a plus. So you want to create a new style. By default, it goes to variable, but here, as I said, doing it with styles is easier. So let's just go on the tab style. And then you name it. Try to name it something that would be easier for you to remember what is it for. For example, you could rename it for the pink. Okay, I know the pink would be the primary color. And then I create style. That way, everywhere on your screens, let's say I take the wireframe that Jocelyn created earlier. So if you see the wireframe, now I want to have all my buttons. Actually, let's do even better. So Jocelyn just created before a component, so I want to use this button, and I know that all the buttons, I want them to use the primary color. So then I go back to fill, I tap again on the 4 circles, and then I would see the styles at the very end show, which is here, I just named it primary color. So I can click, and then it would become pink. And what's great about that, and the way it helps being more consistent, is that let's say tomorrow I don't like pink and I want to change it. You can see on the right side, when you don't click on anything, that in styles, it shows primary color pink. When you hover it, you will see a setting icon. You can click to edit the color. So actually, I don't like pink. I want something that's blue. And then, since you're editing the style, not one specific place where you are using this pink, everywhere where you are using the style primary color would be updated to blue. So it saves a lot of time, it improves consistency, and it's also more clear for the developer when he or she will have to develop the app, to understand that, okay, here we're not using the Xcode 84E2FF. Here we are using primary color. So it will also help them build a design system and also develop faster and be less prone to mistakes. And if you have to update things tomorrow, because that happens a lot, it's way easier to not miss anything. All right. And for tokens, well, all the steps are there, so I'll give you time if you are more interested later to go through it. But yeah, we won't have time to do it today. You mute again, just. I think I should check.
Oh, what happened? Okay. Yeah, I'll really quickly proceed into the final step, which is the most important step, which is to prototype. So Prototyping in Figma means adding interactions. So it makes your interface and your designs functional. And you had a brief sneak peek of it when we did the button earlier. So today we're just going to show you two different types of interactions: button states, which we showed you just now, and now we're going to show you screen navigations. So uh, first, you want to switch your thing here again from design to prototype. Then you want to click on your first frame. So the first page of your project, you'll want to click on that. So let me just bring in our screens super quick. I'll copy this. I'll paste it here. So you want to click on your first screen. So check in, be in prototype again. And then you'll want to click on flow starting point. So this makes sure that your flow, when you are testing your thing in the prototype setting, that you are able to navigate between different flows. So right now, this is called flow 2. So after that, you'll want to click on the beginning of your interaction. So for example, what our interaction here is, you want them to press on this button, and then you want this button to bring them to this page. So that's our interaction. So again, make sure you're in the prototype setting. I'll delete this interaction that I did, but make sure you again find that white circle, drag it, and you want to drag it to this page. So earlier with buttons, we dragged it to the second button. So that was our starting point and our destination. Right now, our starting point is the button and the destination is the page. So again, make sure that your interactions are correct. So you want it to tap. When you click on the button, the action that you want it to perform is to navigate to a different page. So your navigation destination is success, which is this page that we have here. Animation, let's leave it as smart animate. So again, make sure you have the arrow. So as I explained earlier, on tap, navigate, and the animation style is smart animate. Now you can finally demo your prototype again. So press this play button again. It will bring you to this page. So what you'll have here is the button again, it works. But then when you click on it, it changes you to the success page, which is exactly what you want. So what I added also is this button when, or I did not add, but again, you can try. You click on it and then it navigates to the next page. So that is like a very simple prototype that you can do. And as you add pages, add buttons, add interactions, you have more and more uh, animations, more prototypes that you have. But this prototype just allows you to visualize and really see your product in the real world. And for those who are participating in the hackathon, this is super important to give you the edge over your fellow competitors. So I think one last thing that we can touch on is dev mode. So I can turn it off to Zoe.
Yeah, so there is one really good thing about Figma as well. The developers here may know about it already, but it's this bridge between the designers and developers. Um, Thanks to dev mode, it would, I mean, Figma would actually show the developer all the information they would need to actually replicate the designs almost in a exact way in the code. So this is by toggling on dev mode. So as you can see at the bottom, So it changes the interface a bit and it makes it way more technical. So when you select dev mode, sorry, you would see when you select whatever frame that there would be some code, there would be some more properties, and this would be also very helpful for the developer as long as you follow all the steps that we've mentioned so far, because it's important for this information to be accurate. And this would be the case only if you actually use not hard-coded numbers. For example, if you make things responsive, if you make things adapt based on the screen size, all those things are very important and helpful for the developers. And it just makes it easier and faster for them to understand all your designs, because they would obviously, I mean, it would be very challenging if they just had to look at the design and try to guess the numbers and everything. So yeah, that's why you kind of need to be thoughtful from the start about all those points.
Yes. And that uh, is sort of the end of the workshop part of the segment. And now we'll just wrap it up with a few just key takeaways. So allow me to share my screen. Okay, so just some final tips to take away, and I'll run through this super quick. Number one is to start with a low fidelity structure first. As we mentioned earlier, wireframes are equivalent to sketching, and it just makes your planning and building your interface very easy later on. And another super great thing about building wireframes and building things slowly, it, or building things like according to how it should be, is that it makes discussions with clients much easier too, because they're able to see the process and you're able to align on things very easily. Secondly, is to use auto layout and components early. So we've pressed on this a lot. And this is just something that if we were able to restart our journey as UI UX designers, it's something that we would like to implement. Auto layout and components really save you a lot of time. And it's worth the learning curve to implement. And it becomes second nature and speeds up your designing so much when you're not inching a box back and forth all the time to make it center. Uh, Thirdly, make your users test your prototype if you can. If you're developing a passion project and you don't have a client, let your friends or family test it for you. It's common for designers to form an attachment to our design, and we think that it's already perfect, but it also causes blind spots when we're designing, and we may overlook certain issues that are there. A fresh pair of eyes to test your product out is very important, and they're able to identify issues with the user experience like the journey, pain points, and happy trail, these sort of things that affect the overall experience. And lastly, again, also is to name things clearly and reuse styles. I won't sit here and tell you to name all your layers and objects, because sometimes I don't do that also. But an organized and tidy creative is a beast. So start with being diligent with your colors. That's a very good way to start building these habits and forming those muscles of being organized. Create variants and color styles, and be sure to use intuitive naming systems so you don't confuse yourself down the road. So I guess we can open the floor. We did start a bit late, so we can finish 5 minutes late as well. So if there are any last questions from the audience, we may have missed a few questions here and there, but feel free to pop a message or wherever.
Yeah, maybe you can post your question in the Q&A section so people can also upvote your questions so we can answer maybe 2 or 3.
If not questions, then you can also give your reflections from today's workshop if it was valuable to you or anything. Uh, Leanne asked in the chat, any advice for someone with tech or software engineering background looking to start UI UX? If you have tech and software engineering background, it's definitely helpful. I think what you would want to build is your design muscle, because when you come from software engineering, you're coming from a very code heavy technical place, and having the eye for design and intuitive user experiences, that would be a good place to start. So like what we've mentioned throughout the call, things like books, YouTube, articles, platforms like Behance, Drupal, Awards, these are very good places to start. Um,
For someone to switch careers into UI UX with no experience, what's the best way to get my foot into the door? Well, I think what's great about UI UX is that you can learn by yourself. There's a lot of free resources out there on internet, on YouTube, by just following the right people on Instagram. So um, actually, I think just going on the web, there is AI now, so it's also, if you have any question and need a more structured approach to learn step by step, this is also a great tool. And yeah, start designing your own product. Figma is free too, so you can also just start by experimenting and trying. Also doing freelancing, sometimes with luck also you get clients without real world experience, and that's fine. So that's also a good way, and I've heard that a lot of people start being in UI UX by just doing freelancing work at the beginning.
yeah, so a lot of people did ask these sort of questions. I think if you don't have clients for freelance, do passion projects, have a portfolio, and post it out on Behance, mention it in your social media. You probably have friends that are interested in getting a website developed or a website design. Once you have freelance clients that you can put into your portfolio, then you can really just start applying for UI UX roles. I think in terms of getting the foot in the door, that's how I got mine. It's just starting to apply for full-time roles, going for those interviews, definitely getting rejected here and there. But when someone takes the chance on you, that's when your career can really grow. Before that, Huda asked, without dev mode, can the prototype be complete and published? Yes, definitely. You don't need to enter dev mode to uh, finish up your design. Your design is pretty much finished there. Yeah, you can share. You when you click on prototype and you click that the play sign, your prototype can then be shared to other people. So that's where they can interact with it, and you don't need dev mode to do that.
Okay, maybe one last question before we wrap up.
Yeah.
While many designers are strong in UI execution, UX depth often lags behind. What steps can UI focused designers take to strengthen their UX thinking?
I think for UX thinking, it comes from reading. For me,
Mm.
when I did a lot of reading, the books that I mentioned, Nielsen Norman Group, those blogs, there are a lot of concepts relating to human computer interaction, like the gap, or like the core. I think there's like 8 core UI UX principles, and then there's also things like Gestalt principles,
Mm.
Jacob's law. There's a lot of technical laws and standards that come into play with UI UX. So there's just so much to read and learn about UI UX. So I think that's where you can build UX depth while also at the same time you learn the design skills like UI.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also reading a bit about human psychology helps to understand the behaviors. And yeah, I mean, for sure, following all the principles, the design principles is really necessary, I think. But also going beyond that, trying to understand how the brain works and how the users behave and what they expect from an interface face is also very useful. Um, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so finally, so you could work, I hope all of you, on your own design files. So I will give you until tomorrow 8 p.m. to submit. At the end of this workshop, you will receive an email with the URL where you have to add the link to your Figma file. Make sure to enable view uh, for all. If it's in private, we won't be able to have access to it, unfortunately. So make sure it's yeah, view. I don't remember the wording, but
Anyone can view.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, make sure to enable anyone can view so we can review it. And finally, as promised, we wanted at Double On Studios to offer you some gift. So with the code FOFKL, you'll be able to redeem 3 months free of Golden Day. So for those that don't know about Golden Day, it's a bookmarking tool. So for designers and for creatives, it's actually a very useful tool to gather all the resources, inspirations you can find from everywhere in the internet. Uh, I used to save things on my web browser, on Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, and then it makes it very challenging to find the inspiration that I actually need at the moment. So Golden Day just gathers all the inspos in one place. So yeah, you can redeem 3 months free thanks to this code. And same, Lead PDF is a PDF annotation tool mainly made for students and teachers to simply annotate PDFs. Is as simple as it sounds, but we try to make it minimalist and cute, and it's all privacy focused. So we built this tool because we thought that for some PDF files we were not comfortable uploading them to, for example, I love PDF. I'm sure you've used it in your life. So we built this tool to be on the client side, so nothing gets uploaded to the server. So it's really privacy focused. You don't have to be scared about uploading very sensitive documents like uh, bank statement and everything. And you can annotate it, you can share it with your team also for design review. It's something that we saw a lot of students use to annotate their courses if you want. So the web app is actually free, but if you want even more privacy and not even have anything uploaded to your web browser like Chrome, you can redeem 50% off on the desktop app. Yeah, and I guess we are all good. Thank you again to all of you for joining this workshop. If you want to be in the loop on future events, feel free to follow us on social media. We're trying to be really active, and we organize events approximately one at least every quarter. So yeah, feel free to follow, and we would love to have your feedback also on this workshop and any future event. If you have any ideas or things that you would like to see next, also feel free to share. We are always very excited about ideas that you can get, so yeah, feel free to let us know.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining this workshop. Hope it was beneficial to everyone. We had a lot of fun hosting. I had a lot of fun talking with Zoe as well and answering your questions. So
Okay, thank you again, and yeah, see you soon.
Bye
Bye.
bye.